CAO Extreme 5.2 by 54 robusto. Let's get started. Upon initial light up, nice thick, oily, chewy smoke. Medium to full strength. I'd say medium body. You know, it's not necessarily your Pinot Noir. I would say if you want to get like a Pinot Noir Merlot blend, you know, that kind of takes that Merlot, takes that Pinot Noir a little bit higher into the upper echelons of body. That's where this is. Let's also say it's pretty nice and rich as well, similar to the previous blend that I mentioned in terms of wines. Let's see how this goes. Right off the bat, I get notes of oak, not much cedar in it, maybe a little bit of applewood because I do have that subtle sweetness, which is pretty odd when you come from a Habano wrapper, being that's a three-country blend, which I find pretty interesting. It's an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and then the long fillers are from Nicaragua and Honduras, I believe. And it's pretty crazy how Honduras, being one of the poorest countries in Central America, and they're able to make their way into having some of the best sticks out there, or some of the best ingredients to make sticks out there. Let's see how this freaking goes. Draw is not bad. A little tight. Every single cigar is handmade, at least premium, so you can't have them all perfect. That's why investing in a good draw enhancer is probably ideal in a situation where you'll never be able to predict it. You don't need something this large. They now make lighters out there that have, believe it or not, is a cigar stand, a draw enhancer. A lot of them are single torch as well, which is pretty smart of them because you don't really need more than 2 jets. And has a cigar punch inside as well. You know, only time will tell how long those will last. If you're like me, you tend to go through lighters pretty frequently unless you get a really nice one, like this Vertigo 2 torch. One of my best friends gave me. It was very nice of him. It was a really, really good wedding gift. Yeah, drawing this is a little snug. I have had several of these before, more than I like to admit to my wife. I mean, I have a slight bias, but I'm going to give this to you as objectively as possible. I'm still getting that oak and subtle sweetness behind it, similar to an applewood. But I will say, it's a little warm out right now, being July in Pennsylvania. Not my first choice, though, for something this warm out. And with this, I upgraded to seasoned firewood this time around. It's definitely burning a lot hotter. That's for sure. See you on after the first third. Alright, moving on into the second third. That initial medium to full body, I would say is definitely calmed down. I'd say it's a medium, but coming from someone who's had a few cigars in their life, I would argue to some of the newcomers, you may still enjoy this, but it's still going to come off as full body, full strength too. If you're out here like I am, as crazy as I am, in a hot summer day, and you still want to have something like this, You may want to pair it, not necessarily with a scotch or a bourbon or a whiskey. Even though we're free to do whatever we want, you can give it a shot. Definitely would recommend having a nice, dark, but acidic beer. For example, like a Negro Modelo. We're just down the road. Shout out to Desperate Times Brewing Company. They have a Black Forest Schwartz beer. Falls right in the same category. Dark, but it is just a nice, all around, not too powerful. I love my milk stouts. I love my Guinness. I love my Dragon's Milk. And there was one out for a while called Mother's Milk. Killer beers. But for a regular hot day like this, go with something a little more acidic, and you'll definitely be very happy, especially with something as rich and bold as this stick. Otherwise, even though it calmed down, very nice pairing. And I say cheers to that. Look, that fire is getting hot. The only gripe I ever have with this is the band being 2/3 of the size of the stick. However, I hear a lot of people complaining about how this, they got bands where way too large. If you're trying to take it off, and remind me to wear that differently next time. If you're trying to take the band off and it ruins the stick and it starts becoming unraveled, I will say, good on you, CAO, for not putting too much, if any, pectin or vegetable paste on your sticks with a wrapper this size. I've had too many experiences where I do fall into that category where I'm not very happy and I'm not very thrilled that I have my stick becoming unraveled. Moving on to the flavor notes as they're developing, you are starting to still get that oak. You're still starting to get some of that applewood. That sweetness is starting to fall away, but it's definitely still in the background. You're still getting a tiny bit of vanilla now that it's gotten a little subtle. You're still getting that oak, but that oak is definitely becoming a little more on the charred side. So you got that almost like a rich flavor. It's like making that transition from a watermelon Jolly Rancher to a cherry Jolly Rancher. That cherry Jolly Rancher is going to be a little bit more of a bold flavor. That oak, upon light up, believe it or not, started to become a little more bold as we move on to the second third. Still very much enjoying this stick. I still highly recommend it, and for the price, can't complain, even at your brick and mortar stores, which I highly recommend that you support. Even though we all want to go on Cigars International or cigarbid.com, go to your brick and mortar store, get yourself a few samplers, and let's support the whole community. Draw's getting a little tighter. Might have hit a knot or a stem. Still not so obscene that I gotta take out this freaking thing. But we'll see what happens as we move on into this final third. Stay tuned. Why not, right? So moving on into the final third, I can say that applewood sweetness has definitely fallen off, but it doesn't mean that it ratcheted up the body, and that charred taste, that charred oak taste is still there. We're kind of transitioning into more of a leather, and the only hidden sweetness back there is going to be that vanilla note that I mentioned before. And if many of you may not know, you're going to get natural vanilla taste from oak. And if you don't believe me, go out and you look at bottles of Chardonnay wine out there, and you see some of them say stainless steel barrel. There's nothing wrong with it, but that's like the White Claw of white wine, aside from Barefoot Pinot Grigio or Yellowtail Pinot Grigio. But if you get an oak barrel white wine or an oaked Chardonnay, If you get an oak Chardonnay, it's going to have much more density in terms of flavor and complexity and vanilla notes. Charred oak naturally gives off vanilla notes. And at the bottom of those barrels, once they are done with them, before they sell it to people like you and I that just love everything farmhouse related, they have cream of tartar at the bottom. So now you know where cream of tartar comes from. It's from used oak barrels. Going into the final third, I will say, even though that sweetness fell on the wayside, I still get those vanilla notes. And I'm starting to get that spice that we all know from Habano wrappers. I should say we all know. I like a lot of Habano sticks out there, but they don't have that spice that Habanos are known for. For example, the Alec Bradley Black Market Esteli, or the Punch Knuckle Buster. Hey, you can hate me all you want. I'm a fan of that stick, but again, I'm going to be as objective as I can. For $6 Gordos, that Knuckle Buster is worth the money for me, but again, it's about what you want. I did some little grill packets of the Baby Baker potatoes, nice and creamy, the little tiny ones. A little bit of oil, a little salt and pepper, and it complements this nicely. What I would have done differently is with those Baby Bakers, I would have had a beef stew or a bit of a chewier or a juicier steak, as opposed to the vinaigrette marinated tossed portobello mushrooms that I had. If you want something that will complement this nicely, or a lot of people will have this as an after dinner smoke, get something that's a little more fatty. Don't get your filet mignons. Go for a porterhouse or a New York strip. And if that's too much money, which I totally get, we're spoiled with having Carnes over here down the road. Get yourself a chuck roast, put that in the crock pot, make yourself a nice beef stew. And if you're really on a budget with your food, but not your sticks, which props to you, get yourself a nice Campbell's chunky beef stew. That oily coating in your mouth is really going to enhance your experience when you have a stick like this, especially when that spice is kicking in now that the stick, it's not ratcheting up the heat, but that spice is coming in, especially when you have a Habano like this. And I will see you guys once I'm down to the nub. All right, I'm reaching to the end of this CAO Extreme Robusto. My final smoking time was 1 hour and 7 minutes. I will say my score was a little lower than I thought it would be, but like I said to you guys, I would make sure that this would be as objective as I can. I do personally enjoy this cigar. My final score came out to an 86. Lost a few points for the consistency. There wasn't a ton of transitions. The flavors didn't really change much. As soon as it hit the second, third, it didn't change from there on out. I had 2 ashes, 2 touch-ups, and overall, this is a stick I would definitely recommend if you're willing to try to expand your horizons. Maybe you don't want to take the plunge into Maduros, but maybe you want to go to a more medium to full body cigar. Definitely recommend this in the Robusto size. If this was in the Toro, I would be afraid that the draw, even though they're all handmade, I would be afraid that the draw may be a little tighter than what the Robusto would be. But again, overall, solid cigar. Let me know what you think about the CAO Extreme in the comments. I'm going to let this die with dignity, as it deserves. Finish my beer, let this fire die out, and you tell me what you think about this review, what your experience is with the CAO Extreme. And I'll see you guys on the next one.